Hi there, everybody. This is Holly Barrett again, the Executive Director of the DID. I'm going to go ahead and get us started on our next panelist. The name of this panel is the 6 things you need to know about social media advertising and social commerce. So we are joined today by Steve Maly from Maly Marketing, and he has provided us with an incredibly amusing bio, and so clearly he is a man after my own heart. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read you this fabulous bio. Steve Maly from Maly Marketing. Maly runs Maly Marketing and speaks at conferences throughout the Midwest on relevant topics such as this: how businesses can stop lighting their marketing dollars on fire and get trackable results. I like this. His main focus day to day is online media buying, along with his role of being the owner and dispenser of paychecks. Steve's work resulted in Maly Marketing being selected as a Facebook certified marketing partner and a beta tester for Facebook. He tracks as much of our clients' advertising as possible to establish what is and isn't working to optimize strategies and media placements. Away from the office, Steve chases little white balls around the golf course and is passionate about continuing education. I also just got a note that both Christina and I were wrong. It is Steve Maly from Maly Marketing. Steve, I am so sorry. I have a terrible habit of reading people's names as I read them. So without further ado or embarrassment, Steve, I'm going to pass it over to you. Thanks so much.
Perfect. I appreciate it. It happens more often than not, really. The easiest way to remember it. Yeah. I'll say the easiest way to always remember it, it's just like the girl's name. So let me pull this up and get started. So I know things have changed here a little bit. I am actually subbing in for somebody in the presentation. So just set expectations. Let me share my screen here. It's not quite the 6 keys. You will get more than 6 keys through this on the social media side of it. A lot of it comes down to is what we've learned by tracking over $10 million in ad spend, in online ad spend, and what you can do to take this and really run with it on your own as well. So to get started, here's my beautiful family. For a long time, I felt like I was living in a sorority house. I had my wife, 2 daughters, a female dog. And then here about 3 years ago, or almost 4 years ago here at this point in time, accomplished one of the greatest things in my life, have a little mini me finally, which I think is cool. I don't know if anybody else does, but I think it's cool. One quick note on this, you can see my contact information here, our office number, as well as email. If you have any questions after the fact, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to take my brain. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to send you an unexpected bill for $250 for a 15-minute phone conversation. So again, feel free to reach out on that. We've worked with a wide variety of different clients. People that have been on Shark Tank, like Zero Shoes. They were on Shark Tank about 5 years ago, 6 years ago here at this point in time. Really helped them grow the company. We worked with Gallup up in Omaha for their book launch that took place basically this time last year. We worked along with the state on tourism. We did not come up with the tourism campaign, but we've done some projects with them, and then we do a ton of tourism work throughout the state. We've worked with like GoodRx, which you've probably seen a bajillion of their TV commercials over and over and over again. And all that stuff we've been able to really kind of track. We even did some work with the person that was running for president that dropped out of the race here about a year ago, which was a super interesting experience. I can't tell you exactly which one because of an NDA, but if you want to sit down with a beer, I'll give you some stories and what that really looks like behind the scenes. And then we work with people and authors and kind of celebrities in their own space, like Bright Line Eating, and helped her hit the New York Times bestsellers list. Now, the reason why I bring up some of these big brands, big projects, is not necessarily to impress you. It's more to impress upon you. We take the same logic, the same strategy, the same steps, and we apply it to local businesses. We apply it to like Alarm, like IT Pack, Allo, different tourism entities that we really work with. And so it's not about the size of the budget. We have some clients that will spend $150 a month online, and that's really about it. We have other clients that will spend about $200,000 per month. So it's not about the size of the budget, but it's the data that we can collect by running that level of traffic. Then we can apply that exact same info strategies to, again, clients that are spending $100, $150 a month overall. And it's been really tried and true. So one of the things that I always like to be able to lead off with was one of the very first clients we ever worked with that was on Shark Tank. And this would have been probably about 3 years ago at this point in time. Manish is the owner of Pavlok. And to give you an idea what Pavlok is, think of it kind of like a Fitbit, if you will. But the difference is it helps you break bad habits. The way that it helps you break bad habits is it shocks you. So if I'm smoking like this, it can tell that I'm smoking and it'll shock me. If I have a hard time waking up in the morning, it'll force me to get out of bed and do like 10 jumping jacks. Otherwise, it'll shock me. If I'm a terrible overeater, always picking, and my wife realizes that, she can get her phone out and shock me as well. So it's kind of an interesting process product to get people to break their bad habits. But the reason why I bring it up is that obviously when you're on Shark Tank, and I'm assuming most of you have seen at least one episode, is it's all about info and it's all about data. What's the cost to acquire a customer? What's your product cost on this? What's your market? Like all of the type of stuff that goes into it. So Manish, the owner, was talking to us, and we're giving him the hard numbers that we know and what that really looks like. Well, what happens is when you film in front of the sharks, about 70% of the people that film in front of the sharks make TV. The other 30% hit the cutting room floor. So what happened with Manish, she filmed in September. Well, since this breaks bad habits, the natural segue would be probably January. New Year's resolutions, trying to create and establish new habits. It would just be a perfect opportunity for them to show his segment in January. Well, also what happens is that Shark Tank only gives you about a 10-day heads up if you're on TV. If you're not on TV, you never hear from them again. Well, they give you about a 10-day heads up. So what happened is January came and went, nothing. We're like, all right, probably February. February came and went, nothing. March came and went, nothing. And we just assumed that he was part of that 30% that hit the cutting room floor. They never see TV. Well, he called us, and it was like May 10th, May 12th. And he's like, hey guys, I want to be on Shark Tank here in a week. And I want you guys to run ads right after Shark Tank ends to really take advantage of the press. We're like, all right, perfect. I'm like, what do the sharks tell you? He's like, well, I can't tell you. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But anything like that they said, any type of conversation, any type of insights, period. You don't have to tell me if you got funded or not, but it's any type of insights to help us build a campaign around it. Like, nope, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Well, the episode comes, and I realize it's a season finale, which is really pretty cool. So we sit down with family. I had actually other family in town, and we all kind of sat down and we're watching this. And as the show goes on, I realize he is going to be the final person on the season finale. And I knew at that point it's going to go one of two ways. All of the sharks are going to stand up, and then they're going to sing Kumbaya, give group hugs, all that type of stuff. Or the way that it actually happened. So what happened with Manish is that his claim to fame was he actually hired somebody off of Craigslist back in the day to sit next to him at work. And anytime he got on Facebook, her job was literally slap him. And so he has horrible ADD. He's the first one to admit that whole thing. But going into it, who I assumed would be open to this idea would have been Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban, right off the bat, is, hey, you're a fraud. You're a con artist. I can't believe you're even here. The sharks started to really fight amongst themselves. He's bouncing back and forth. To give you an idea, too, he was in front of the sharks for about 48, 49 minutes. The episode is 8 minutes. So there's a lot of edited for TV and all that. But he came across just horrible. And again, it was good for their ratings, good for their attention, not so good for the product itself. So eventually, Mr. Wonderful, and ironically, Mr. Wonderful is the one that's made the offer to the majority of our clients that are on Shark Tank. Mr. Wonderful steps up with an offer. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but he steps up with an offer. And Manish is like, hey, can I get a minute to go call one of my partners to see if it's good? And Mr. Wonderful's like, no, like, I need to know now. So Manish thought about it for, a couple of seconds. And he's like, hey, you know what? I appreciate the offer, but you're in it for the money. I'm in it to change lives through, breaking bad habits, or not to get fit. The answer is no. Well, the next 5 to 6 words out of Mr. Wonderful's mouth, I can't fully repeat, but basically it was F off, get the F out of here, cut to black, roll credits, and our ads start going live right then and there. And so we're pushing a ton on social media out there and getting a huge amount of backlash. Huge. He's what's wrong with today's, business owners. He's what's wrong with millennials. They probably blamed him for avocado toast, like all kinds of stuff. Anything that he could be going for, he was. So what generally happens is when you're on Shark Tank, regardless if you get funded or not, you'll see about a 30% bump in sales over the next 30 days. Well, he saw a 40% decrease in sales because it came across so horribly. The reason I bring that up, though, is because we're always super interested in human behavior. Not what people say, but what they do. So when they're making all these comments online about him, he's a horrible person, horrible CEO, horrible product, yada, 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 everything was bad. So what we ended up doing though is changing the narrative, changing the story. We ended up getting him on some Facebook Lives. So they got to know him a little bit more of a personal manner. We ended up shooting a ton of video on like FAQ. When I say video too, keep in mind most of the stuff I'm talking about video is phone video. That's it. The frequently asked questions, him answering that, him giving case studies. And so we ended up just doing a huge educational push on what this really is, what this is really all about, so they can see his true personality, but also a lot of the data and information and why this product is actually valuable. So what we end up doing by showing that and taking them through a narrative and a story that we can kind of help control through marketing and retargeting online is after 30 days, we end up seeing about a 35% bump in sales. And this is after a bunch of the people, and we're able to track it down between comments and products that were purchased. And said, I'll never buy, this is crap, yada, yada, yada. Again, we're interested in human behavior, because what they say versus what we do is two different things. So we end up seeing a bunch of those people coming back and really buying. And so that's what we always do a deep dive on. So when I'm talking about this stuff, it's not just, hey, here's high-end theory, here's what I think. It's either based on data from spending over 10 million online to get you some good info, or we do a deep dive in academic studies. The reason why you do a deep dive in academic studies is because a lot of other studies, it all depends on who sponsors the study. It can be really biased. There are studies out there that actually show that smoking is good for you. Yep, good for you. Well, they're underwritten, sponsored by Philip Morris. So obviously they're gonna have data that shows it's good for you. So that's why we take a look at academic studies, because they generally don't have that bias, which opens up some opportunities I want to be able to get into here in a second. But before we do that, with any type of presentation that I give or any type of presentation you have, period, what I always encourage you to do at the end of it, just grab a blank piece of paper, write down 1 to 2 things you want to take and implement. Just 1 to 2 things. A lot of times, ideally, I'll give you a lot of things you can implement. The other speakers you'll have on this as well will give you a bunch of ideas to implement. However, what happens when you get back to the office, you have a huge list of 15, 20, 25 things that you can really get done. As human beings, when we see that list, we get super overwhelmed. It's like, where do we even start? So at the end of this presentation, I encourage you to write down just the 1 to 2 things that you want to really start and implement. Start that, implement it, finish it, move on to the next one. Start it, implement it, finish it, then go back to your list. Again, I don't care if it's a list that, notes that you got from my side of it or somebody else's, then start implementing that as well. Because if we try to implement too many things at once, A, you don't know what works, and B, generally becomes overwhelming and it just doesn't really work all that well. So I want to be able to highlight a lot of things we learned by spending this money and by really tracking a lot of this as well, what it really looks like. The big key to here, and I know it's cheesy, but the big key is there's no business to consumer or business to business. At the end of the day, it's all human to human. Through online channels, we've sold to NFL football coaches, doctors, attorneys, nurses, accountants, anybody and everybody, and kind of in between. And it's all about making that connection with the other person on the other side. So I know sometimes we'll hear back, hey, my audience is different. I literally heard this, 2 weeks ago. My audience is a bunch of doctors. They're not wasting their time on social media. I mean, I can show you data. Here about a week ago, we got 450 doctors, 440 some, to show up on a webinar, on a training call. So, and that's all just through social media ads. So yeah, anybody and everybody can really be reached through that. So one of the big things that came out when we're doing some of our academic studies and reading that research, we saw this back in November, it would have been of last year. So in marketing, everybody talks about being different. You got to be different. You just have to set yourself aside and set yourself apart. The key, though, is not necessarily being different. And the reason why is in that study, it took a look at companies all around the world. And what they found out is only 6% of organizations are truly, truly different. Think of like Tesla, think of Apple. Those are a couple examples. The majority of the other companies, 94%, means that, we're really kind of the same. And so when we're trying to become different, is we're just saying the same thing as what other people are doing. So it's not about being different. What it really comes down to, and I'll get to it here in a second, is a little distinction. So if you think about it, humans have over 50,000 thoughts per day. 95% of those thoughts are the same thing repeated every day. Hence, it's no wonder why most companies market really in the same way. So as you go through this, this is going to be marketing things you can take online. It's also marketing advice that you can take offline and implement. I don't care if it's billboards, if it's print, if it's radio, if it's any other things that you're doing as well. Because at the end of the day, marketing is marketing. Talking to people and reaching to people is the same. It's going to be tweaked a little bit based on platform and based on user experience, but you still want to be able to reach them and communicate with them in a very unique way. So, you have a ton of common terms that you see again and again and again and again, and how companies really try to be different. Built from the ground up, do more with less, world class, one-stop shop, fall into savings, fall in love with, never settle. Again, you'll see it again and again and again and again. So I love this quote when I came across it. If you think adventure is dangerous, try routine. It is lethal. So what it comes down to, it's not about being different per se, it's about being distinctive. And being distinctive, there's a big difference with that. So being different, if you want to take a look, on my left, market X, where you got a bunch of circles inside of a circle. If you try to be different and you're outside of a circle, well, you can see you're still a circle inside of a circle. So you're still the same. But if you want to be distinctive, you have different colors. You have some that are, hollow inside, some that are filled in. So that's more about being distinctive. What you're trying to do is grab somebody's attention, even for a couple of seconds. Because if you get them to stop, especially in social media, if you get them to stop the scroll, you have an opportunity for you to then kind of talk about who you are, what you do, why they should buy from you, that type of stuff. So you really have to be distinctive and not just sprouting out differences that everybody else really kind of has. So I love this example. I think the state of Nebraska has done a really good job with this. It's their tourism campaign. Keep in mind, and I know somebody from Visit Omaha was on here previously. Keep in mind with Nebraska's tourism campaign, it's not for us. It's not for residents of Nebraska. It's for people that are out of state. And the majority of people that are out of state think of Nebraskans as basically fat, overweight, white guys in overalls. And that's about it. They just see us as rows of corn, driving down the interstate nonstop. So I really liked what the state of Nebraska did on the tourism side of it, because it became very distinctive. They played into some of those stereotypes to grab their attention and then really kind of talk it through. So lucky for you, there's nothing to do here. A lot of times if an agency or, a marketing person comes to you and wants to write that headline, you might get a little nervous with it. But it's great because you play directly on what people are already thinking. Just state what people are already thinking. That's going to be distinctive because generally people don't. And then lead into some of the content. So they've done a really good job, like some of the body copy. In Nebraska, we believe that only boring people get bored. So we invented our own fun. Like when we realized that a livestock tank would float and thought, hey, it's a boat. Soon, tanking became the preferred method of meandering down or slow moving rivers. It might not be everybody's cup of tea, but if it sounds good to you, as it did to us, go visit for a free guide. So taking a look at the distinctive and how do we take a look at it, how do we apply it? This also ties directly into the number one lesson we learned. And that's one thing I like about doing these presentations. It really forces me to take a look back. In this case, doing the prep is over the last quarter. Is what does that data look like over the last 3 months? COVID hit in March, so basically, quarter two was wiped out, if you will. But what does that really look like, and what are we seeing when it comes back out of it? So one of the big things that we saw over and over again, and this has held true for a little while, is that people aren't searching out for your product. They're not searching out for you directly, whatever you happen to sell. People are consuming content, and then they just happen to stumble upon what you have to offer. Now I have stumble in quotes, because as a marketer, and we have the resources through social media and whatever else it may be, for your ads to appear and just magically appear, when people are interested in travel, in eating, in apparel, in whatever it may be. So the interesting thing with online content, 36 out of every 60 seconds spent on a phone is social media based. Last time I looked, and this has probably been about a year ago, last time I looked, making phone calls on your phone was either like number 5 or number 6 on the list. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's dropped even lower at this point. The average person spends almost 6 hours per day on digital. Now, some of that stuff could be Hulu, Netflix, up on their screens, whatever it may be. Part of it's going to be social, part of it's going to be Google, part of it's going to be YouTube. So they spend an ungodly amount of time overall with digital up. Even with TV watching, a lot of times when people are TV watching, they're multitasking by being on social, digital at the same time. And because of the platform and the world that we live in, content really finds them. So if you're waiting for people to try to search you out, so I love Google. Google's a great place to be, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. However, people with Google already know they want to have something. Is it shoes they're looking to buy? Is it a restaurant to go to eat at? Whatever it may be. They know what they want to have, a higher level of intent. However, what you want to be able to do is put the bug in their ear and be able to have your brand, your voice, what you do in front of them before they even get to Google. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that here in a second. But if you're waiting for people to search you out, you're just at the whim of them whenever they are ready. And generally, you'll just capture whatever is left over. So you'll be happy with whatever happens. It tends to just happen. You feel like you got less control. So what you want to be able to do is a couple of different things. One, with the marketing that you're doing online, is you want to make sure you have a pattern interrupt. Now, there's numerous ways to create a pattern interrupt, but basically it's something just like the screen shows. Is you have a bunch of pink or black arrows pointing down on pink sticky notes. You got one in the middle that sticks up. So it's going to grab your attention right away because something's off, something's not right, something's kind of sticking out. So you want to be able to use that power to give them something unique and something really unexpected. And again, when I say unexpected, it doesn't have to be like just drastic, real weird, out of left field type of thing. Just something a little bit different than what they're normally seeing, again, on social as they're scrolling through their feed. It could be photos are a little off. It's like this guy that's sitting backwards on a horse. We did this campaign for Visit North Platte here in Nebraska. And it grabs your attention because something is off, something is strange. We've also seen it before if you just have it cropped differently. Maybe you crop off, part of his head, the Cowboy's head, Buffalo Bill's head. We've seen things like that work. The other thing that photos are a little off is in Photoshop, and I'm sure Canva does it, and I'm sure there's a bunch of online platforms that can do it. Just take a photo and just bump up the contrast by about 20% or 30%. If you bump up the contrast by that much, it's something that's subtle, that again grabs their attention because something just seems off, with your gut, but it makes you stop, and look and think and kind of question what is going on there. Also, we take a look at this as kind of an interesting hook. We've done this on the tourism side of it. We've done it with restaurants. We've done it with shoe companies. Is what's the most unique, just, distinctive things that you do that, not maybe everybody knows about or not everybody wants to have or wants to buy, but it's something that's just like, whoa, what the heck is that? You've seen in the food industry by some of the food challenges or by some of the hamburgers they stack, 5 patties and bacon and yada, yada, yada over the top of it. The majority of people coming in are not buying that hamburger. The majority of people coming in are buying the regular hamburger or steak or whatever they really want to have. But it's a hook. It grabs their attention. Kind of like with this with Carhenge, is when people go to, many of you have been to Carhenge. Honestly, you can see the whole thing in 5 minutes. I mean, it's small. You can walk around, you can touch it and stuff like that, but it's not all that big. Well, they use it as a hook to pull people into Alliance, in this case, because Alliance that has a bunch of other stuff that you can talk to people about. So what we take a look at with a lot of this is what can we do to use as an interesting hook that's different, that's unique, that's distinctive, to help tell the rest of the story. The other side of it, black and white sketches. Black and white sketches work out really well. In print publications, a lot of them used to be black and white. Newspapers, a lot of times are black and white. So if you added a little bit of color, it really kind of stuck through. Now, majority of stuff is all full color. So the opposite is true. So if you do something more kind of black and white, like sketchy like this, again, it's different, especially like on Instagram is a great example. On Instagram, is when they're going through it, is it's very pretty photos. So if you see something like this, you're like, what the heck? And again, it just makes you stop. And that's what your whole goal is to stop and then they have a chance to read your content, whatever that might be. So again, just crazy, unique angles. For example, here's a hut. I'm sorry, I can't think of the exact term for it right now. And the majority of people won't stay in this type of thing, but it's different. It's like, that'd be kind of cool. That'd be kind of unique. So again, kind of think through the products and ideas that people probably just won't be searching for. something distinctive that you can offer, that you can show in a little bit of a different way, use that as your headline. Use that as your way to kind of get in. Because once people are interested, they will explore that much more about your offerings. Plus, once they're interested, it gives you a great opportunity to retarget them to help tell the rest of the story. You're just looking for that initial hook overall. So a good example of this is tanking. We had an ad example from the state here previously, might be 4 years ago now. We started running tanking ads for North Platte. And the majority of the tanking ads that we did was actually in the Front Range. So you're talking about Cheyenne, Wyoming, to Fort Collins, down to Denver and a little bit below, and trying to get those people from Colorado to come into Nebraska to take a vacation. And so we needed something to grab their attention. If you look at this tanking, and I'll be honest, like when my in-laws took me out tanking for the first time about 10 years ago, I thought it was some real hillbilly stuff. I mean, it just sounded really crazy. But you get into the horse tank, and the way I describe it a lot, like, hey, do you like to, be outside in the summer? Yes. Do you like the water? Yes. Do you like to go for a float? Yes. Do you like to hang out with your friends and BS? Yes. Do you like to have a cooler full of your favorite beverages? You do all that. Yes. Perfect. Put all that stuff in a tank, you float for 2, 3, 4 hours, and you're good to go. So what we end up doing is using tanking as that initial hook to get people interested in, like, what the heck is this? I haven't heard of this. What is North Platte trying to offer? So in day number 1, when we did Google search for tanking in Colorado, is you had almost no results. A little bit here and there. A lot of times the tanking was for something different, but generally speaking, hardly any results. Well, by the end of that tourism season, over 7,000 people were talking about it on North Platte's posts. We went back to Google and we saw, that proverbial hockey stick of a ton of people now searching for tanking in Nebraska, and more specifically North Platte, around this. And so it worked out really well. They became educated. We gave them good content. We led with tanking. We retargeted with some other stuff that people could do in these communities, because we were able to grab their attention and tell that story. And again, once people have that content, they go to Google with a high level of intent to now make that purchase, if you will, that buying behavior. And I don't care if a purchase is literally buying something on your website, or a lot of times we consider it filling out a form, clicking on your phone number, clicking on your email address, whatever that next step is you want them to take. So when I talk about this, it's not just about buying things online. We do a ton of work with service-based companies, and so it's more about getting those leads in that you can really then take, follow up with, and maximize. So also, what does this really look like? So what we talk about a lot of times is supply them with the value and content they didn't know they desired. So what we were talking about is build an ecosystem. So what you want to be able to do is establish a community, just get some soft commits. Now what a soft commit is on the online world, it's liking a post, if you will. Maybe it's even commenting on the post. That's a soft commit. Another soft commit is watching your video. If it's a minute video, 5-minute video, 10-minute video, a soft commit is watching that. Again, just because I like a post or comment on it doesn't mean I'm going to buy it. But now I'm kind of in their ecosystem. And if I'm in their ecosystem, it gives them an opportunity to follow up again and again with some better content. So what we always ask for is soft commits. And the big key behind this too, and as marketers, we fall in strap from time to time, you don't want to talk about yourself too soon. To be point blank, they don't care about you. They care about their needs, they care about their desires, and how do you help them, meet those needs, meet those desires. So if you talk about yourself up front too soon, it doesn't really serve anybody. It's a lot like finding somebody on Tinder, and in the middle of a Tinder date, your very first Tinder date, you ask them for their hand in marriage, without even dating. And too many times in marketing, that's what we try to do. You're like, hey, look at me, buy for me. I know you don't know me, but you can trust me. I know I've been on this date with you for 10 minutes, but hey, trust me, let's go get hitched, let's go get married. And when I say it like that, you all know how just dumb and unrealistic it is. Again, in marketing, too many times we try to do that. So don't go from, hey, it's great to meet you, to buy my stuff now. One thing that I saw that I absolutely loved, came across this about 3 years ago from a company down in Austin. It was their definition of a brand. And I thought it worked out really, really well, because this plays into soft commits, this plays into the don't look at me, buy for me, type of stuff, is the definition of a brand and how they pulled it together. It's putting more deposits in people's equity bucket before you ask them to buy. So again, it's putting more deposits in people's equity bucket before you ask them to buy. It's relationship building, and you got to do it online. You got to do it offline. Actually, studies have shown you got to do it more online than you do offline, because the cost of getting into online media is so cheap, bar is so low that, you know, if one of my daughters wanted to run an ad campaign, all they have to do is, you know, spend 10 minutes on YouTube, learn how to do it, and they can spend $10 to get it done. So a lot of times you have to have a lot of time to build out those relationships. The other thing is that we've learned is you have more than one chance. The average buyer's journey is 42 days, 43 days. And how we learned this, there's a conference we attend every year. This year got postponed till December. We'll see what happens. It's called traffic and conversion. So it's how do you get more traffic to your site, and how do you convert that traffic into people that potentially will buy from you. And there's a guy that created this software and tracking software. It's called Wicked Reports. Dude's from Boston, so everything is wicked. Well, we have a lot of clients that go out there to this event, this traffic and conversion event. And so a lot of times we'll have some clients and some friends over, you know, and so that way we can just nerd out, basically talk shop a little bit. Well, the guy that created Wicked Reports, I pulled him over to the side. I was chatting with him. And at that point in time, he tracked over $3 billion in spend. Okay, man, like what are some of the most common things that you see, trends? And he's like, I don't care if it's a direct response model, if it's clothing, if it's other product, service-based. He's like, across the board, generally speaking, the average buyer's journey takes about 43 days. 43 days from, I've never heard of you, what's going on, to, all right, I'm making a buying decision. And a buying decision, again, could be a yes, I'm going to buy from you, or a decision like, nope, it's not a good fit. I've already met my needs, whatever it might be, and it's gone. And he's like, he's seen some industries, it's been a little bit closer to like 35, 36, other ones a little bit longer, closer to 55, 60. But generally speaking, right in the middle of that is 43 days, and that's the majority of the industries we took a look at. And he also said through all their tracking of spending all that money, and different people spending the money, is it took between 12 to 14 points of contact for them to build trust with you, to understand it. So again, you don't have just one opportunity. It's not one of those things that I'm reading, you know, print publication, I see an ad one time, and that's the only chance I ever, you know, give my users, if you want, to be able to see my brand. That's the same reason on the print advertising is well, there's two reasons they want you to sign 6 months, 12 month, you know, 2-year contracts. One, obviously, is predictable revenue on their side of it. But two is that it has to be seen numerous times in order for you to build trust with your potential consumer for them to make a buying decision. So what we take a look at and how we use the definition of brand, how we use a lot of this in our online marketing is just education-based marketing. I've been speaking, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years overall, and really this part of the presentation has remained key because it's all about the education. You know, a lot of times when people think about marketers or salespeople, they think about that slick person on my right, you know, that used car salesman that's going to tell you anything that it would take to get you in that car, because he understands if you don't drive out in a brand new car today, he'll never see you again. What we need to do is position ourselves more as that teacher, you know, more of that education. If you think about it, teachers gave you a ton of value, so you trusted them. Maybe it wasn't just a teacher, maybe it was a mentor, maybe it was a parent, you know, maybe it's a friend, whatever it may be, but somebody that's giving you a bunch of value, taught you a bunch of stuff. We as human beings are wired to reciprocate. So we want to give them value right on back. And so that's how we need to position ourselves, is leading with value, be more that teacher than that slick used car salesman. So to establish yourself or the company as the expert in the marketplace, largely through education. So what that looks like and how it breaks down is it actually pulls 8 times better than just product or service based. Because again, you're building trust right away before you ever ask for anything on the back end. It's the #1 viewed content online is education based. You know, again, the whole key is to lead with value first. You lead with value first, you'll be able to get some really good value on the back end. So what this looks like, and I'll give you some examples as we really kind of break this down and go into it a little bit deeper. Take a look at leading with articles and insights. You know, it's articles that's teaching people about your products, you know, how maybe it's how it's made, it's how it's used. You know, one that I'm thinking kind of top of mind, we do a lot of work with Bet Zero Shoes, which is a shoe company, a barefoot running company. So it's a bunch of content about what does barefoot running even mean? What kind of protection do you need to have? The old technology from the 1970s that the guy created for Nike, he's come out and said that no, that's bad technology, but they still use it. But it gives them a bunch of information around that, gives them insights. What people love, with restaurants is, see behind the scenes to a certain extent. People love it when you raise the curtain. One of the best videos that we've shot, and again, videos, generally speaking, phone. Yes, you can have a production company. Yes, there's value in production companies. Yes, if you want to, we can help you with that as well. But what it comes down to is the technology is in your pocket, and majority of time, that's all you need. One of the best videos that we ran is a service-based company. What we did, we literally just walked around the office. It was like, hey, this is Sue. When you first walk in, you'll be able to see Sue. This is what she does. You go around, this is Doug. This is what Doug does. And people loved it because we're able to see kind of behind the scenes, put a face along with the brand. And that's what you want to be able to do. I know we've done this before. It's worked out really well. Restaurants, it makes them a little nervous when we've done it. It's worked out really well. Is give them some of your recipes. Like do a video showing them how you make some of the stuff that you make. Give them a lot of those details. Maybe not every single detail, but the majority of it. We've had clients and restaurants that have given away literally their whole entire recipe and what that looks like. But it's just like mom's cooking, if you will. Regardless how hard you try, you just can't make it as well as mom. It's the same thing. If you have them try it at home, whenever they're trying it at home, they're thinking about you, thinking about your brand over and over again. It's not going to taste exactly the same. And then it drives them to go to your establishment that much more often. Use videos to tell stories. We're very visual creatures. So videos can work out really well. And I'll get you some more details in videos here in a couple of slides. Give out free guides, free downloads, any type of free information that you can really kind of give out. What we used to always talk about is giving away, one of your top secrets or 5 of your top secrets or whatever it may be, because it's a good way to lead with value. And again, if it's a secret, other people know it, other people do it, generally speaking. But if you're the first one to lead with it, that means you really kind of own it. And again, if you're leading with that type of value, the consumer is going to feel that they need to reciprocate somehow, some way. And again, it comes down to teaching and teaching every opportunity you get. So some other stuff that we've really learned, and this plays really well on social, long form copy. Long form copy outperforms short form copy almost every single time. There's no guarantees with any type of marketing, but 90% roughly is that long form copy outperforms it. There's a couple of keys to it. One, there's a huge misbelief that people don't read. It's complete BS. People love stories. So if you can tell a good story, people absolutely positively read and have data all day long to be able to show it. The other key is you want to have a lot of spacing. So maybe 1 sentence, 2 sentences per paragraph. Now, my 5th grade English teacher would absolutely hate it, but we're marketing, we're in persuasion, we're trying to get sales here or leads in, whatever it may be. So as we go through it, is you want to have a lot of space, because what happens is naturally we scan. So if each paragraph is only 1 sentence long initially, it makes it really easy for my eye to be able to scan because there's a bunch of white space in between. And then once I figure out that if I'm interested in this, then I can slow down. Then you can put in longer paragraphs. And then you can do like, a bunch of bullet points kind of together, whatever it may be. The other set of long form copy, it qualifies the individual before they ever click on anything. And on social media, when you get charged is when somebody clicks on one of your ads. What you'd rather do is repel a bunch of people to not click and only have the most serious people click. So if I really wanted for my clients to get just super cheap clicks, I would have probably 1 to 2 sentences in my ad, period. But then you'll get all kinds of people that are not qualified, not interested, will never buy, just simply clicking on your ad out of curiosity. Oh, that sounds interesting. What's that all about? Well, they just charged you. They just charged you 15 cents, 30 cents, 50 cents, whatever that cost per click was. So what's a better bet for you is really have long form, know those people that now will click on it are a lot more qualified to take whatever that next step is. So again, if you do it and do it correctly, this works 90% of the time. The other side of it, long form video. So you always hear again and again and again, and I'm sure I'll probably, somebody else at this conference will speak on the short form video side of it and keep it short and sweet. Speaking of short and sweet, the best example is this, is I'm not a fan of cats. Never have been. I'll never own a cat. My family, actually my wife and one of my daughters is allergic to cats. So even if I like cats, again, we never own one because it just doesn't fit into the family with allergies and everything else like that. So I will never, again, own a cat. But I've watched a ton of 30-second cat videos because, you know, sometimes they can be cute, sometimes they can be cuddly, whatever it may be. But just because I've spent 30 seconds of my life watching that doesn't mean I'm ever interested in moving forward with adopting a cat. That's what you get with short videos. Again, you just get piqued their interest a little bit. Oh yeah, this is great, this is cool, this is interesting. The only long form cat video I'll probably ever watch is Tiger King. You know, outside of that, I'm not going to be spending my time watching any type of long form. I only watch long form videos that I'm truly interested in. And so what we did with Susan Pierce Thompson is we helped her hit the New York Times bestsellers list. And long story short, publisher wasn't able to get as many sales. Actually, publisher was only able to get about 10% of the sales that I thought they were able to get. And so we had to run a bunch of marketing campaigns to help get the rest of the sales. So what we ended up doing is we ended up having her just talk about basically each chapter in her book, at least 8 chapters inside of her book. And just talking on it on Facebook Lives. Some of it were actually recorded as well. But just talking about that chapter, here's the details, here's some takeaways, here's some really good things. Now, if you wanted to pull all 8 of those videos together, you have about 80% of her book. But that's still, people still just bought it like crazy because they were super interested in it. But the key was her videos, hers, were about 20 to 40 minutes in length. What we ended up doing was taking anybody that watched at least 50% of the video. So that's 10 minutes to 20 minutes, and retargeted them with the book offer. So when she's talking about the book and going through the chapters of the book, yeah, she said, hey, you know, if you're interested, we do have a book that's out if you want to go buy it. But 99% of it was simply, here's content, here's value, here's information. And we knew if you're watching anything for 10 minutes, you're super interested. Even if your videos are only 4 to 6 minutes, if you have somebody watching with you for 2 to 3 minutes, again, they're interested, they're qualified. They're not going to waste their time by watching a video for even 2 to 3 minutes, because in today's society, we're so busy and distracted with all kinds of stuff, if they're not interested. So again, long form helps qualify those people. And what you can do then is retarget those people based on viewing time. Majority of the time, our cutoff, what we always want to take a look at, did they engage with us for at least 2 minutes? And if they engage with us for 2 minutes, we will retarget them. If it's less than 2 minutes, they kind of go into a different bucket, and we do a few different things. But if you think about it, and for those of you that know your stats in your website, a lot of times if you're running an ad to send a person back to your website, maybe it costs 50 cents, 70 cents, 80 cents, whatever it may be. But then take a look at your analytics. Out of those people that land on your site, I bet you 60% of them bounce right back. Potentially even 70% of them bounce right back to where they came from. The other ones that stayed, they probably stayed for 50 seconds to maybe 70, 80 seconds total. Now, if for literally pennies, I can get somebody to watch one of these videos for 3, 4, 5 minutes, I'd rather spend pennies to build up that trust, build up that value, and then retarget them to ask them to come back to your site to be able to build something out. You know, what we've seen in the past is we've literally had videos out there that are 40 minutes long, but it takes 80 cents, costs us 80 cents to get somebody to watch a 40-minute long video. We'll do that all day long. Again, if they're spending that much time with you and your brand and your info, they are likely to buy something from you pretty quick. So short stories do have a fit, but again, it's always leading with content first, long form content and long form value first. And then using these short stories to help just build your brand and get people in front of them, and again, show different ways that you really are kind of distinctive. So once you get them captured, short form retargeting, perfect, works out well, because now they have a basis. They know who you are, they know what you stand for. You know, you've given them some value. Now just remind them of that quite a bit. So short form stuff can work out well, but what I would consider it's more middle of the funnel than top of funnel. So again, we talk about this a lot on the overall positioning. You know, lead with one thing, just the one thing in an ad. Again, if your average buyer's journey is 43 days, you have a ton of time to send them and to show them a bunch of different ads. But each one should only be one thing and focus on one thing. The reason is a confused mind does nothing. If you're trying to lead with 4, 5, 6 different things and tell them the complete, you know, everything you've ever done, you know, in an ad, people come out overwhelmed. They don't do anything. So just make that one thing super clear. And again, retarget the rest of the story. You have time to be able to date. And if people are already pretty far in that buyer's journey before they ever discovered you, if you lead with value, give them some good content, people are really good about filling in the gaps. That's when they'll go to Google to, they'll find out more information about you, but they're real solid on filling in the gaps. This is a print ad, not a social ad, but it gives you a good example. Like, where does your eye even start to look? And too many times you try to fit in everything. We do this, and we do this, and we do this. I remember this, and also here's the certification, and here's this. So it's just way too much. It reminds me of a networking event. When you meet somebody and they just spew all over you, they talk to you about 20 minutes about them and themselves, and they don't even give you a chance to breathe. I love this photo because I think it plays really well into that. And again, at times, as marketers, we can fall into this trap. The other side of it we talk about a lot is testing ads online first. Test the ad images. So you have vector images, you have images kind of from up above here, test some different headlines. That's what we like about online. It gives you a great opportunity to test all kinds of stuff, from images to videos to headlines to body copy. And if we're talking with clients, I use the word test over and over and over again. Even if we have something that's performing really well, we'll still kind of test a little bit against it. So what we've done for some clients, if they do want to do print, and print can work out really well, niche print in particular can work out really well. What we tell clients is like, all right, we'll just pick on strictly business because it's on my desk, is I am trying to hit 40 to 55-year-old business people in Omaha. And so I have an ad in strictly business. So what I end up doing is taking a look through analytics on Facebook, because Facebook owns Instagram, so you're going to capture both those analytics at once. It's like, all right, let me segment this out. Let me segment out people who are 40 to 55 with business interests. Let me see what image actually worked out the best. Let me see what headline worked out the best. Let me see what copy worked out the best. And then you can form your copy and your content, your ad, around the best of. First, taking a guess of like, hey, let's just try to throw something in there and see what happens. Is this allows you, it's for much cheaper. I mean, really, you could do some of this testing for as little as $100, for much cheaper than it's going to cost to do a print publication. A lot of print publications, and it varies, but a lot of times you're looking $600, $1,000, $1,200, whatever it may be. So do a quick little test online to find out what resonates first before you do move it into the offline world. A couple of things too, and again, it's distinctive, what can work out really well in social is vector-based images. So it's what you see over here on my left. Is with those vector-based images is it sticks out. It's not common. You're used to seeing regular photos. The other side of vector-based images, and this is the psychology side of it, is I see a photo, and let's just say this is a husband and wife in real life, is I'm judging them. And it's my reptile brain that we all have. And the whole job of the reptile brain is, basically, is it danger or not? Should I, fight or flight is basically what it comes down to. So I'm prejudging them. And so I'm looking at the guy, and again, if this was a real photo, he's like, oh, look at that guy. Look at his hat he's wearing at Goofy, and look at that nerd carrying around in his old camera. Look at their shoes. We're just judging them. And again, we don't mean to, and it's much more subconscious. But if it's vector like this, there's no judgment, because my reptile brain knows it's fake. And so it doesn't try to take me down that fight or flight path. And so there's no judgment on it. So this type of stuff can work out really, really well. And if you do use stock photos, and stock photos can work out well at times, is try to find non-cheesy stock photos. There's a couple different sites. If you want to email me, I'll be more than happy to share. One of them top of mind is unsplash.com. Splash like you jump in a pool and make a big splash. So it's unsplash.com. Gives you all kinds of stock photos for free that look real, kind of like Instagram photos, if you will. Those type of things can perform well. But the whole key is making sure it's not just cheesy on that. Also with this, it's easy to be able to segment out by age, based on what you sell. Maybe you need to position yourself a little bit differently for 20 to 30-year-olds, and you do 30 to 40 and so forth. And you can also go a lot deeper. The thing about both Google and Facebook, which ties into Instagram, obviously, is the pixel and how they track you. They have so much data on this pixel at this point in time, is they know, generally speaking, who you are, what your next steps are, what you're interested in. Use the power of that pixel to help find a client just like you. Back in the day, we used to, go ahead and micro target. We're targeting 35 to 45-year-old women that live in the south side of town, that own a house that's worth at least $500,000, that has 2 kids, that drives around a BMW. Because as marketers, that makes us feel really good if we get really niche. And in an offline world, that's perfect. In an online world, though, it's a different story. Online, that pixel knows so much more about us and our behaviors than what we as marketers try to dig into. So use the power of the pixel itself. The other side of it, I know this is offline, I'll wrap up here in another minute or two, is when you can get weird. You know, getting weird helps you get distinctive and really kind of stick out. We did some work at the Nebraska wineries, and we did a trail, and this is next to houses that, you know, a bunch of people before work, after work would go on this trail to kind of get outside for a while. And so we just used spray chalk. Spray chalk cost $3 for the stencil. And, you know, this would be more fun with wine. So imagine walking down, you know, this trail, talking to a friend or a neighbor and seeing this message. It sticks out, makes you chuckle. We did this sticker inside of some different bars. You know, you're better than this. You know, visit a winery. At a football. So a year ago, one of the football games is we went to a bunch of urinals, crappers, porta potties. There we go. There's a technical name for it. And we put this this poster up. You know, if you were at a winery, you wouldn't have to hover. And again, it's weird, it's different, it's distinctive. It really kind of grabs your attention on it. So kind of get out of the box, just throw a bunch of ideas up against the wall and literally see what sticks. So a couple of takeaways as we wrap up is really be progressive in front of your audience. Understand that you have time to date, and you have to date. In order for them to trust you, you have to date. You have to build that relationship. So that's when we talk about building out an ecosystem and getting a lot of soft commits overall. Don't take them from, hey, look at me, now buy for me, is, hey, look at me. What about making a comment on my post? What about liking my post? How about you watch 2 minutes of this video? Soft commits, retarget to tell the story. And then when you're fully ready, ask them to buy. So in closing, I really close the majority of my my talks with this, is at the end of the day, you have the power of choice. Like I said, I want you to jot down 1 to 2 things you can take and really implement and roll with here today. And it's your choice to take that. It's your choice to implement and roll it out and track the results and see what happens. It's also your choice not to do anything whatsoever and still remain in the same position you're in today. But if you do choose to take some of the stuff that I've taught and implement it, I'd love to hear the story. Good, bad, indifferent. You know, it's like, hey, I implemented this, this is the change, this is what I saw. Hey, I tried this and it just didn't really work. But I always love to be able to hear that feedback and hear those stories of those people that do choose to really move forward with some of the info. And the last thing that I want to be able to leave you with is one of the most important things that I can give you is I want you to always remember Iowa is the worst state ever. So with that being said, in my contact information, you can find me on the website, malymarketing.com. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions after the fact. Like I said, if you just want to pick my brain on something for 15 minutes, more than happy to do that. There's not going to be any hidden fees attached with it. So that being said, I appreciate the time, and I don't know if we have time for questions or what the agenda looks like on your side.
Thanks so much, Steve. I didn't see any questions that popped up that weren't already answered. But if you guys at any time, remember that most of our speakers will be back this afternoon for our live panel. So if you have questions then as well. We are going to take a lunch break. We'll be back at 1 o'clock to move your business to a virtual customer experience. You can close out your computers if you don't want to keep it on for the next couple hours, and we will be back. If you have any questions, let us know. We did get a question asked about the presenters' presentations. We are kind of limited on our time, so we're kind of flying through, but I already have Visit Omaha's up on the omahadowntown.org website under the resource tabs. You can find that there, and we'll add them throughout the day. So anything else, let us know, and then we will see you guys at 1 o'clock. Thanks, Steve, so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.